Brazil is one of the most important players in the Americas, being the biggest economy in the South Pole, having the biggest population in the region, and also being the country with the most access to the Amazon forest. However, Brazil's riches do not stop there, as the country also has a vast amount of culture, like the world's biggest carnival in Rio de Janeiro, or a little-known bossa nova song called The Girl from Ipanema that is believed to be the second most recorded song in the world. As such, when you talk about Brazil, it is hard to think that the country faces a multitude of social challenges, but it does. The social challenge that we're going to talk about in this episode is one of many that the people living in Brazil have faced, and some, sadly, still do. We are going to talk about food insecurity. Brazil has had its ups and downs in the food insecurity index, with one of their lowest lows and their highest high being achieved in just 1 year from each other. According to the United Nations report, The State of Food Insecurity and Nutrition in the World, in 2022, close to 17 million of Brazilians, about 8% of the population, were suffering from severe food insecurity. This is to say that 17 million people in 2022 went without food for a day or longer in the country. Thankfully, this number was reduced in 2023 to only 2.1 million people. And although this number is still too high of a number, it is way better than the previous year. And all of this, of course, is without mentioning the people who still have to face some degree of food insecurity. Many have risen up to the challenge of food insecurity in Brazil, but in this episode we are interviewing one of the most interesting cases, at least for me, the case of Comida Mañana, who is represented by Monica Guerra in the program. The team of Comida Mañana define themselves as a food-focused think tank, has been working for almost a decade now, with the focus on collaborating with the cities to create policies that help them become more resilient to food insecurity in all of its forms, and has managed to do so with 60 cities. But that's not all, as the team has also been able to become a voice representing Brazil in many of the international forums talking about the topic, and even created a cookbook that is not only a cookbook, but a way to change the world. That, by the way, you can download in English, in Spanish, and in Portuguese in their webpage for free. As such, without anything else to say, welcome one and all to the Voices of the South. Welcome, Monica Guerra, to the Voices of the South. It is a pleasure having you here. The conversation today that we're going to have is about Comida Mañana, and it's your project you have been working for a while, at least for what I could see from the website. And what I can figure out is that you are, or you call yourself, food think tank, which is a very specific and a very peculiar name, because it is the first time that I hear a think tank being related to food. They are usually related to policies, as Comida Mañana is, but mainly on monetary policies. Rarely ever I have seen a think tank that is related to food policies, which I found super interesting. So I don't know if you want to introduce us a little bit to what the project does, what you do with Comida Mañana, and a little bit of how it started.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure to be in the podcast, The Voices of the South. I think it's such an amazing initiative that you are bringing to put these voices to be heard from the part of the globe that we know that usually are unheard and unseen. So it's super interesting to be here and to tell you a bit about what Comida Amanhã, in English would be the food of tomorrow, is. So yeah, the project started, the idea of the project started in 2016, and the organization started in 2018. So it has been some years now that I'm working on this with my team, but also we are still a quite a brand new organization. We are still very young, if you see from a relative perspective. But what is it about a food systems think tank? And you are right when you say about that. We really thought a lot about what to call and what we would be. And a think tank really fitted what we aim as our theory of change. So I'll try to make it brief. When we look at food systems, they are perhaps one of the most challenging systems that we have nowadays in the world. What do I mean by that? We are producing and consuming our foods in ways that are unhealthy for the planet and unhealthy for people. And this is related to the whole food system. When we think about food system, we need to think about production, distribution, access to food, consumption, but also about what we do with our with the leftovers, what do we do with food waste and food loss. So everything is about food systems. And when we look at food systems, they are broken in the sense that we are producing food in a way that is building on deforestation, pollution of waters, pollution of soil, greenhouse gas emissions. And this is something that is increasing year after year. And the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, since 2018-19 is bringing food to the center of the discussions on the climate discussions. So for you to understand, like in the global greenhouse gas emissions percentages that we have from different sectors, we have like 30% of all greenhouse gas emissions are emitted by the food systems. In Brazil, that number reaches 74% because it's connected to deforestation. So it's really a big slice of the contribution to the climate collapse that we are living nowadays. And this food system is not that it's breaking apart our natural resources, but feeding everyone adequately. No, it's not happening. So we are breaking our natural resources in our planetary boundaries, and at the same time, we still have more than 800 million people facing hunger in the world, and we have a lot of people that are facing obesity, and they are not adequately fed. They don't have nutritious food for everyone. So this system is broken. And when we look at this system that is broken, we need to look at it from a systemic and holistic perspective. We need a lot of knowledge and a lot of people to sit together on the table to make this change. Because we're talking about environment, we're talking about health, we are talking about rights, we are talking about social justice, we're talking about all of that. So when we look and we came with the idea of Food of Tomorrow, Comida do Amanhã, to be an organization that can help the transition towards a more healthy, sustainable, and fair food system. And to do that, we need to build knowledge. We need to build global understanding and to qualify the public debate. So people need to understand better what is the food system about, what are the problems that are being put in place, and where can we find the solutions. So we do it in two ways. So from one side, we bring a lot of knowledge and content and research on food systems transformation. And at the same time, we work a lot on advocacy, mainly at the local level with the local governments. So we do it from the urban perspective, because we are aware that the majority of our population lives in cities. In the case of Brazil, where we work, more than 80% of the population is living in cities. So if we want to change the food system, we need to break, and this is something that is happening at the global level for the last 10 years. We need to move on from looking at the food systems challenges from being a production challenges, but also from being a consumption challenges. And in cities is where food is being consumed, and cities is where the policies are being designed. So we work both in building knowledge and qualifying the public debate, but also building advocacy and qualifying the public policies. So that's why we understood ourselves as a think tank, because we need to build debate, we need to put people together, we need to bring evidences on what we are trying to change, and also we need to build that with the local governments and transforming public policy, because it's important that people know what is a healthy and sustainable food system, but we also need to have policies that make it able for people to access healthy and sustainable food for their lives. So we really found out that we needed to work with both things. So this is a think tank that builds on policy, but at the same time on knowledge and debate and intersectorial relations that we can put to move forward with this complex agenda. I try to make it brief because it's quite complex. It's a big system, but that's how we make it. And you were asking the story a little bit on how it started. So I had my background in urban planning and management. I graduated as an architect. I did my master's in urban, and never in my whole academic career I was introduced to the topic of food. So until very early now, when people were thinking about cities and urban policy and about architecture and about the space and the production of space that we have, food was absent from that debate. It was only when I arrived in Brazil. I'm originally born in Portugal. I arrived in Brazil in 2011. And when I got to Brazil, I came to understand the liveliness and the importance of food on the culture of people, the importance and the diversity. Is the most biodiverse country in the world. But at the same time, it was a country that was facing so much problems with deforestation, with the pesticide use, with obesity, with hunger. And for me, it didn't make any sense And I came to understand how food and cities were super entangled, how people in the same city access food in different ways, how people in the same city, you can have an abundance of access to food and you can have hunger in the same city. So how cities needed to be in the center of the debate on how can we shift the food systems. So that's something that was triggering my mind since 2015, 2016. And I came to understand how we needed to make this bind together. And it was something that was coming out of my smart mind, but it was something that was being built in policy and a lot of reports and documents. So the new urban agenda was starting to talk about food. We had the Milan Food Policy Pact, that is the biggest network of cities that are committed to food systems in their urban planning and their urban thinking. This is everything came in 2014, 2015. So in 2016, I looked at it and understood how could it be that we could have, if we could have an organization that looks at food systems from a systemic approach and does it from the urban level point of view, that works with it from the city's perspective and not from the rural perspective. And that's how the idea of Comida was starting in 2018. Me with my co-founders, Juliana and Francini, we got together and we really designed what became to be the Food of Tomorrow Institute. And since then, we are working each day more on food policy in Brazilian cities. We work today with more than 60 cities in Brazil, but also building a lot of knowledge that we are sharing for free in our networks and reports and reflections on the food agenda. And it was not something that was being so much worked on. And we decided to make it happen. We really put together our knowledge and the things that we were interested about. So, for instance, Juliana, she is a lawyer. She had a long way working with food policy. Francini had worked for many years with gastronomy and management of gastronomy in Brazil. So we get together and we really decided to put in place this think tank that helps transition the food system from different perspectives and from a holistic approach. I think I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for answering. Thank you very much for giving such a complete and complex answer. It's very rich. As you say, it's very difficult and very easy at the same time. Imagine a city, we have food. We live in the city, we don't see the production of the food, we don't see where it's being grown, we don't see what is being processed. We just go to the groceries and buy it. And we rarely step down and think, well, what happens if this production line, if this commercials line happens to stop, happens to disappear? What is going to happen to the city where we have, I don't know how big is Rio. I think Rio is the biggest city in population-wise in Brazil. But for example, what would happen with Mexico City, where you have 50 million people living right there and now? What would happen if the production line of the field to the city were to suddenly stop, which we sort of saw something similar during the pandemic, not nearly to the level, but it's something that every day is becoming more and more real with climate change, with some policies that politicians are, it's iffy. I mean, Bolsonaro was a big figure, especially during his term as the president of Brazil. And now that we have the other megalomaniac guy in the US who is doing a bunch of weird stuff. So all of those things, we never really step down and think like, how would this affect something that we give or we have for granted, which is food, especially in the cities where you don't need to work, where you don't know when a bad season happened, when you don't know anything because everything is so well organized. And I truly believe that what you and your team are pointing towards is super interesting because cities need to become more resilient. We saw that during the pandemic. Cities are in no means and no ways capable of being isolated. The moment that something as extreme as the COVID pandemic happens again, we're gonna suffer. The people that live in the city, because the people that live in the field, I mean, sure, they may suffer economically, which is bad, but food-wise, they're gonna be okay up to a point, of course. But everybody's gonna suffer something. But food-wise, they're gonna have way less trouble than people depending on the supermarket, on the grocery store that is in the corner. So I find it quite interesting that you guys are going from the municipality, which is usually one of the lowest levels of political organization for a country, and then you're trying to escalate to a national and even an international movement, as I was seeing on your webpage. You talked to us about a little bit about the inspiration, about the team that is going with you. What have you made? And I wanted to ask you a little bit about also at the beginning, how difficult was it? Because you started in 2016, right? I got that one right. How difficult, more or less, was to start this? I'm a specialist in development studies, and even myself found it a bit impressive and a bit. It's a big world when you start talking about food policy. It's a big world when you start talking about food security, food sovereignty. It can be overwhelming. So how difficult it was to start convincing people and be like, hey, I know that right now we live in a place, in a society where food is more or less guaranteed, but this doesn't need to be like, it's something that is not set in stone. It might happen that at some point this breaks. How difficult, how easy it was to bring this chat for everybody to start Comida de Mañana?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. And I thank you for the reflection that you are bringing on. And just to point that on what you were bringing before, yes, cities, they are the hotspot of the challenges. When we have a broken or not resilient food systems, cities can be seen as villains and they can be seen as first line victims. So yes, cities are contributing because a lot of us live together in cities and we don't have more autonomy to build our livelihoods and to have production for ourselves. That's something that it doesn't connect with our urbanized world. So our urbanized world shifted the food system as well. It supports the food system that we have that is based on big scale and agro industry, but at the same time is the biggest victim of this food system because it's a food system that is not resilient. You are completely right. So we faced that during the pandemics, how people were having a lot of it was being a challenge for municipalities to guarantee that people could have access to food because we have this big global change and challenge, but at the same time at the national governments, sometimes national governments, they don't have the capacity or the commitment to help municipalities in this moment. And also municipalities, each city is different. So cities need to adapt and to build a policy related to their own context. So yeah, for us, it's like how can we see not cities only as villains or victims, but see them as places for innovation and opportunity? Because cities are bringing on a lot of solutions that they can be built at the local level, and then they can be scaled up, or they can be replied, or they can be learned and adapted in other cities. So you are completely right. The role of networks of cities and putting cities together on a peer-to-peer learning process is super important to build more resilient governance systems and more resilient territories and more resilient countries. So we need to know that the local level is where the policy touches the people. So that's where implementation happens. And we need to be ensured that this implementation of policy is being context driven and is being adapted to the place that we are and to the needs of the people that are in these cities. So being that said, when you ask me how challenging this was in the beginning, it wasn't easy. I think that somehow we were bringing a solution. We were very aware that the cities have this big role in building more resilience in the food system. It happened that in the first years of Comida de Amanhã, our focus was actually in trying to build knowledge on food systems transformation needs. So we published books. We worked with FAO to launch the Urban Food Agenda in Latin America and Brazil. We partnered a lot with the Eat Lancet Commission to launch the Eat Lancet report in Brazil. So we're trying to bring this knowledge and to build a debate in Brazil. So trying to somehow have people a little bit more open and sensitive to the debate from a more holistic and systemic perspective. This happened in 2018, 2019. So we were pretty much together also with the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. That was the Latin America event that they have a Congress. We were part of the curatorship of that. So in the first years, we were really positioning ourselves and also understanding how to approach this big challenge of food systems, because we are starting to design and to understand how the Institute could perform and what could we do that no one else was doing, so we don't compete, but we collaborate. So since the beginning, we tried a lot to build on intersectorial debates with the food systems, the United Nations Food Systems Summit that was about to happen. So we connected with the global debates, and we've managed and coordinated 3 different debates in Brazil. And when this happened, and we were already drafting what came to be our biggest program, that is Lupa. It's a lab on urban food policy that we have in Brazil. Nowadays, it's the biggest urban food policy lab in the world. When we came to design this project, it came COVID. So we're there in the midst of 2019. We are trying to fundraise for this project. It was our biggest project so far. We were super confident that building a lab where cities could learn with each other, to make it a social lab, to put cities together from different areas of the municipality, different departments, to have civil society engaged, to bring to cities knowledge on systemic thinking, on how to build intersectorial strategies, food strategies. We were super aware that this could make a shift. But out of nothing, we had COVID. And as you were mentioning, we had a government of Bolsonaro. And in the government of Bolsonaro, the first decision that Bolsonaro did was to break apart the national food systems structure. So we have a Brazilian food system structure that has the social control. We have a council from civil society. We have an intersectorial chamber for ministries, and we have the national conference. So the first mandate of Bolsonaro was to shut down the Civil Society Council on Food Systems. It was his first signature when he got in charge. So in this moment, we knew that cities, they didn't have the guidance of the national government anymore. So he came on government in 2018. When we got to 2019, the cities didn't have any guidance from the national level. And we had this project designed. So we happened to have the support to release the project, to make the project work. At the first year, we were hoping to have 10 cities applying to be part of the lab. We had 23 cities interested in the lab. We started to run the lab with these 23 cities, and we saw how these cities, they got much more, they had a lot of support among each other, and how they could evolve, and how many solutions they had built during the pandemic. So I think that in the moment that we had the design of the lab, and we had our theory more consolidated, and we knew that what we needed to do, it happened that everyone or many cities saw this as being important, because they were facing all the issues of lacking resilience. So they were in the middle of a crisis. And when we came with this program, at the first time we were thinking cities will just be thinking about emergency actions and policies because they're facing hunger. So this is problem. And as you may know, in the numbers during those years, Brazil got back to the hunger map. So we were out of the hunger map in 2016, 17, and then 2015. And then back then we were back in the hunger for all our strength. So there were like 20% of people facing food insecurity. So in that time, cities really saw the importance of what we were doing, because I think we were bringing the right solution in the moment it was most needed. And this came to make this project something that really helped cities, because cities could exchange among them what they were doing to face school feeding issues, to bring food to people. So even the emergency policies they were having, but also the more structured long-term policies they were having, they could help each other. And they didn't have the guidance, so they could guide each other. So this happened to be a very important moment to launch this lab. And from that moment on, the project was started to be recognized, and our approach was starting to be recognized nationally and internationally. And because since the day zero of Comida Amanhã, all the time we work it collaboratively with other organizations that work with food systems. We had a lot of partners coming together. So we were supported by a lot of organizations that saw how we could actually make this bridge of specific niche contents and challenges of food system with the overall perspective of the local level. So how could we engage municipalities in looking at food systems from a more integrated perspective? So I think that we have the project design without knowing that the crisis was coming. When the crisis was coming, the project was there, ready to help the cities that were most needing about. And I think that it somehow make the movement get faster. So we came to have results, rapid results on what was happening. And from that moment on, we started to be invited and to take part on different projects that look at the local level as a starting point and as a trigger to make a global food systems change. And this is something that was coming also to the overall debate. So we see that since 2018-19, the IPCC connects food with climate change. Then early in the last years, we saw that the last report from HLPE, from the high-level panel of experts on food system, is about urban and peri-urban food systems. The IPIS Food, the International Panel of Experts on Food Systems, also is working and looking at food systems. FAO launching the urban food agenda. So now this is a hot topic. To look at food from the urban level, this is something that is a hot topic at the global level, and is also a hot topic now at the national level in Brazil, as the federal government now has launched a strategy called Feeding the Cities strategy. So they are looking at the fight against hunger and the fight for food sovereignty and food security from the local level as being a core strategy to look at food security and food sovereignty. So I think that somehow we were, I don't know if we were lightened up, but we designed the project. We saw the problem that was there before the crisis arrived. And when the crisis arrived, we were ready to take action. And this somehow made us get where we are now.
Super interesting, because the majority of the social innovators that I have talked is the pandemic becomes a crucial moment, most of the time in a negative situation, in a negative form, because it puts pressure on funding, it puts pressure on the way they were doing their activities. You couldn't see people anymore. You were so constrained to social media and to digital means. But for you and Comida de Mañana, the pandemic comes in a moment where, like, you were already detecting the lack of resiliency of the cities, at least regarding food security and food sovereignty, and you were already starting to talk about it. And when it hits, I guess that's the moment when a lot of politicians and a lot of bureaucrats, they are like, "Oh, this is real. This is something that can actually."
We need to get ready. Yes, we need to get more resilient. We need to be ready to respond, and not in only in an emergency perspective, but we need to have structured strategies and plans so that we can move forward with this. And I think that was also this understanding of the importance of this topic. This is a topic, I think it's something that is important to say, because we're mentioning about whatever the polarized world and the radicalism that we have, the reactionarism that we have these days. But food and access to nutritious and healthy food for everyone, it's something that it's hard to have someone that doesn't agree on. It's not a polarized debate. It's each and every municipality, each and every mayor doesn't want to live with the challenge of having hunger in their city. That's something that no one wants. So, or to having the challenge of, like, in the recent years, we had a lot of climate extreme events in Brazil, the floods in the south, the drought that we have also in the north and in the Amazon region that is threatening also distribution of food and access to food. So we have a lot of climate extreme events these days, and the mayors are facing that. So this is there is political will on this agenda, and there is political will from the left, the more left, and from the more right parties, from the more left, more like political perspective. So I think that's something that every city can see as being important when it comes up here. And it's something that I think it's interesting what you were bringing about us as social innovators and social entrepreneurs, because we were working online in hybrid, in completely online since the very beginning. So back then, it was just three of us, the three co-founders together. Today, we are 41 people working in the Institute, but back then we were three. We were working online. And that's something that was for us a big challenge in the beginning, because when we designed Lupo, we designed it to be a lab in person. And when the COVID tackled, we had all the project, we were fundraising for a lab that needed to have people in person. We changed the whole methodology to make it online. And we did it with support from Rio's partners. There is a big organization globally that works with social labs. And Rio's partners helped us to build this methodology and to rapidly adapt the methodology to the online tools. So we had a project very fast. It was adapted to the online tools. And we've always we were pretty much starting. So we didn't have that much work before that. So we didn't have projects ongoing that were broken or disrupted by the pandemic because we were at that moment finishing some small projects and getting ready to start these big new projects. So we were very flexible and resilient back then because we had very little to lose. We were just trying to make something happen from that moment on. So when we tried to do something from the very beginning, it was the first edition of Lupa. We didn't have any structure before that. So we were able to make it already adapted. It was launched, adapted to the moment that we were living. So I think it somehow helped us to navigate in the pandemic moments and in the pandemic tools that we have to work with pretty smoothly because we were just starting something new and we started it already taking care and being aware of the moment we were living in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it puts in perspective how these kind of moments can be critical in different ways. No? In the case of Comida de Mañana, you were just starting, you were just getting together the idea. Nothing was that set in stone, so to say. Everything was still flexible. And when the pandemic happens, you have the time to reorganize and make it digital, which is something that you were already doing, no? And something that wasn't as common as it is now. Yeah, like that happened for Comida Mañana, and for other projects has been like, yeah, this came and we were just in shock for like 2 months because we didn't knew what was happening. No?
But we were also in shock for like 2 months because we didn't know if we could be able to fundraise in the end. But there was this organization back then, it was Ibirapitanga, that trusted in what we were doing because we didn't have a big portfolio to prove that we would be able to make it happen. So I think that somehow we were, and this is something that we are thankful for the rest of our lives, like to have these philanthropies that back then were so much supporting innovation to come, and they were trusting in innovation. So they helped us, and the Institute for Climate and Society, ICS, Birapitanga, they were our first donors that helped us to make this happen because they trusted that we had some horizon. We knew where we wanted to get. And once they trusted us, we did our very best to make it the best possible project ever. So we have this I don't know, I think that trusting in innovation and trusting in people that are coming trying to solve problems and complex problems with systemic and holistic approaches is something that sometimes is very hard to see in philanthropies. Sometimes philanthropies, they ask you to have specific indicators and targets and results in the end. And these organizations, they helped us to do something that we were aware that we wouldn't have results in 2 or 3 years. We wanted to shift policy. We wanted to shift governance cultures. So that's something that we don't have a result in a quantitative result in a very short time, but they were open for that. And they were pretty much confident that we could make something. And I think that also the philanthropists, sometimes they need to take risk in these crisis moments. They need to take risks and support also social entrepreneurs and organizations that are trying to make it different. And I think it happened to us to have this luck or this capacity to get together with these philanthropies in Brazil. They were so much into supporting who was trying to make things different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, a lot of good things happen at the same time that managed to help Comida de Mañana had a solid start, which actually brings me to the next question. And it's, you've been in the project in Comida de Mañana for around 8 years and a half, a little bit more, a little bit less. You have started to influence public policy regarding food security and food sovereignty in around 30 cities in Brazil, which it's a lot of cities. One city is a lot of cities, but like multiply that for 30, it becomes quite impressive. What, and taking the food motif, what do you think is the secret sauce of success, of the success? I mean, I know it's impossible to concentrate all the effort that you and your team has made to make it successful. But if you were to choose one thing, what do you think is the angular stone that has catapulted Comida to Mañana where it is now?
I think I would make it with one. I'll try to make it with two, maybe two ingredients for the success. It's for us. It's always good to see it and to be reminded it as a success, because we keep on working and sometimes we forget to celebrate. But yeah, it's a lot being done, because in Brazil we have more than 5,000 municipalities. So when we see, we are working now more or less with 60 cities, not 30, but 60. But when we look at that, for us, it's like, okay, we have tons of others to influence. So it's still small because it's a huge country. But yeah, you are right. It's not something easy to do. But I would say, first of all, I think that we have beautiful team, and I think that the way that we build the leadership in the organization, it's very beautiful. So for instance, all the work and all the knowledge that Juliana had all her life on public policy. So we one of our founders, she has a long way and a long journey working with food policy. So she was the one in the beginning that saw this is the issue and we need to move that way. We need to find out how to do it. But I think that this enlightenment, somehow it's not enlightenment, it's a matter of some very interested person. So we have a team that is very committed, not only Juliana or our direction, our leadership, but the whole team is a team of people that are passionate about what we do. So we are now 41 people. Our team is spread amongst 18 states of Brazil because we were online. So we are spread along the whole country. We have a geographical distribution of our team all over. So we have people that are sensitive also to a lot of what is happening in many cities. So I think that the first thing would be the amazing team that we have and that we are building. So it's a lot of very committed and passionate people that are working with us today. And at the same time, I think if we would look technically, what would be the key of success in working with cities is that we focus. I think there are many of them, but one that just emotions me the most and makes me so much proud is that we work with people. We don't work with a specific policy. We don't work with an organization. We work with people. So all our project is very focusing on a human culture. So when we have people taking part of Lupa, we try all the time for all the technicians and public servants and people that are working in the municipalities to be aware of the importance they have. So it's a lot about trying to make it clear to everyone that is working in this agenda how fundamental they are to leverage up the resilience of their cities and the work on their cities and the wealthiness and the happiness of the people that live in their cities. So this is something that for us is super delicate, how we have strong human connections, and we are building on governance culture. So how people can trust they are capable, they have a lot to learn, but they have a lot to teach. And this builds a lot of engagement. So everyone that is part of Lupa, there is a very high rate of attendance in all our workshops, in all our meetings. People are pretty much committed in bringing the lessons to their municipalities because they see that they can do it. They are empowered by the project and by the program that they are capable to do that. And I think that this is only possible because we have a very careful way of working with people, a very careful way on how we tackle the cities, how we work with everyone, how we involve them in this big network that now is Lupa. And at the same time, I think one of the biggest successes of the project is that we build it deeply intersectorial. So there's no city that can point out only one focal point. Every city needs to point out at least two focal points from two different departments. So we build resilience within the city. If one person is not being able to bring answers or to take part on the activities that we have, we always have more than one people taking part, and we have always more than one people from different departments of the municipality. So we ensure resilience of the participation, and we ensure also that this is something that will be debated inside the city from an intersectorial perspective. I think that would be some of the key of success is together with the context that the project is being done, together with there are many points. I could make a list of it, but I think that this human connection is super important.
So just to have it compensated, you would say that the two main ingredients for the success are human connection, in this case, the human connection of the institutions, of the people that make the institutions, and a good team. That would be
Yeah,
like the
and I
two
think that's something
main.
that is not only about the work we would do with cities, but all the work we do. We have strong connections and trust among partners, among other institutions. So I think this is something that is super important. Maybe this is something very characteristic from the South, how we work together, we trust each other, and we make it happen collaboratively. So I think this is one of the key of success that we can have inside the team, so everyone knows and is part of the same purpose. But also when we look at the overall ecosystem, how we have people around us in organizations and the municipalities and the people working in the municipalities that can see the value of what is being done, and they can see that the purpose is something that connects us all. So we are not working with competition. We are really working in collaboration with everyone.
We hope you're enjoying this episode. As you probably know, the Voices of the South survives thanks to the support of the people around the project, and we would like to ask you to consider supporting us. There are several ways to support the project. The best way you can support us is by subscribing to our Patreon, where you can support us with $1 a month and receive various benefits, such as our exclusive series, The Echoes of the South, where we feature the stories of social innovators from the Global South who are no longer with us, but whose work was fundamental in changing the world. If you can't support us on Patreon but still want to help, the best way to do it is by subscribing to the podcast, giving us a rating, leaving a comment, and most importantly, sharing it with somebody else. Any of these actions help us reach more people and thus gain more support. Now, let's go back to the interview. Yeah, I found that super interesting because you are being very clear on that this is a collaboration, this is not a competition, which is something that I think in this world, in this society that we live on, we always forget about. We always want to be the best. We always want to be number one. We always want to be this the prize, no, the awardee of some. When we should be trying to collaborate, especially in the cases that are so critical for everybody, like food security, food sovereignty is very important. And something that I wanted to mention, sort of at the beginning of the interview, is that we live in a society, we live in a world where we would be able to give food to people to have the caloric consumption guarantee. It maybe not necessarily the best food in questions of nutrients and vitamins and whatever, but there shouldn't be any need to have people facing hunger and starvation. And I think that a lot of that is because we have this idea that everything has to be a competition, everything has to be, if you have it, then that means that I can have it. When some topics, I would say that they should be exempt from this idea, and food is one of them, especially now that we, as human race, have the possibility to ensure that everybody has access to at least the minimum caloric intake to not fall into starvation. Thank you very much for all of what you have shared. It's a beautiful story. It's very inspiring. I find it super interesting that you are, because usually the social innovators start working on a project in the ground, and then when they have the model together and everything, then they try to make it into a policy. But you and Comida de Mañana basically turned the idea upside down, and it's like, no, we need to start with the policy. We need to start with the systematic problems, and the best way to tackle it is to go directly to the people working in institutions, because they will understand and they will want to work with us to change and to create a better world. So I love that Comida de Mañana is a perfect example of the order of the actions doesn't necessarily alter the result, which is in this case is to change the world for the better. Which brings me then to the middle of the interview, two questions that I like to do a lot. The first one, because you get to share the best moment for you on your history in the project. It can be something very personal, or it can be something very big. That's up to you. But also because you get to share a little bit of your humanity by sharing a mistake, by sharing something that happened that perhaps put the organization and put Monica in a difficult position, but that you managed to overcome and you managed to learn from it, and the project is better after that. And as I say to all the interviews, we don't ask this question to evidence you or to make you feel bad. We ask this question because if there is any starting social innovator that is hearing us, I want them to know that even people like you, Monica, who has impacted 60 cities in Brazil, which again is it's easy to say, but I just it's once that you start thinking in cities and the amount of people that live in cities and the amount of people that live in Brazil and the distances of Brazil, 60 cities is just mind blowing, honestly. So the whole idea of this is for people that are starting to be able to see, like, okay, if Monica and Comida de Mañana have made a mistake and they recover and they acknowledge it, I can also do that, and I can also become better, and I can also change the world even when I set up, as we say in the program. So you're gonna start either with the highest achievement that you want to share, or with a mistake. It's up to you.
Okay, so the highest achievement is also to, I always like to make that clear, is really not about Monica, is really about the whole team. So I really, and it's something that tickles me to think about entrepreneurship as something that came from a, like kind of a genius mind. It really didn't happen that way. So I think that one of our biggest achievements is how we are making it, and the leadership of Comida Amanhã and all our team, how we really make it together. So I think that the biggest achievement, if I would pinpoint some projects or something, I would say that what we've been doing to Lupa and is just overwhelming. So to see how Lupa got the voices of the world and was being recognized by the UN, at FAO reports, at HLP reports, at IPES food reports. So to see the international reports and the international debate recognizing the work we are doing in Brazil with Lupa is just mind blowing for us. We would never think that this could happen in such a short period of time, and that we could have this being highlighted like this internationally. We knew that we were making something at the local level. We were trying to leverage up the policies at the cities. But as you were saying, we never thought that this could get to the global debate, that this could be recognized globally. For us, it was mind blowing. It was not something that we were planning to be awarded like that. We when we started doing it, we didn't even know that we had any chance of being seen from the UN or FAO as a blueprint. And this is something that is happening. And this kind of brought a lot of other achievements. So now we are helping the federal government in implementing the strategy, feeding the cities in Brazil, in the 60 Brazilian cities. Some of them are part of Lupa, some are not. So this is something that for us is impressive. And also other achievements that we did a cookbook. I think that's something that is very cute to say, that in 2018, we launched a cookbook that is called This Is Not Only a Cookbook, is a Way to Change the World. You can find it online in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. And this cookbook was our very first project when we had the very little fee that we could have. It was the first time we got some money for printing the book. And it came to be recognized as the best cookbook in Brazil in 3 categories and the best of the world from the Gourmand Awards. And back then we didn't even know that much. It was like, for us, this cookbook was like cards that we could show to people. It was like a way to show how we see food systems from an integrated perspective, and it ended up to be super prized, and we were not expecting that. So it was the first time that we look at it and say, maybe we're not crazy. Maybe what we are doing is something that the world is needing. So I think those achievements are impressive. But yeah, the biggest achievement is that we are being able actually to put the agenda and the debate, and we are shifting policies as an overall. It doesn't depend on each project. It depends that our mission is being implemented in everything that we do, this coherence, that everything we do is all focusing on that. And to be so coherent is helping us a lot to move forward. But I think it's so very interesting, and it's curious, and it's funny to think about the fuck ups, if you can say like that. So the things that didn't went so well, we have many of them. If I can go back to 2015, 16, when I first started to think about what Comida de Manhã was, and back then it was me alone. There was no one else with me back then. I got into a Red Bull. Back then, Red Bull had a Red Bull Amapico. It was an incubator for social entrepreneurs to have support, financial support, and all of that. So you needed to have. There was a selection process, a very hard selection process to get into Red Bull Amapico in Brazil, there were like 12 organizations, startups that could get to Amapico. And back then, I didn't know what Comida da Manhã was supposed to become. I was starting to think about Comida da Manhã, and I thought that it could become a startup. I didn't know it was becoming a think tank because I just knew what I wanted to, where I wanted to get, but I didn't know how to make it. Then when I got to Red Bull Amapico, I was one of the finalists. And when I got in the jury, they said, you are not a startup, you are an NGO, and you need to know what NGO it will be, and we won't select you. So I did not move forward. Back then in Amapico, other organizations were people that are super amazing in Brazil. But for me, it was such an enthusiastic, and I was so excited, and I was putting a lot of effort on that. Like, this is the moment to understand how Comida da Manhã will become. And I was just blocking on the door, like, you don't get in, you don't even have the profile of a startup. You don't have profit. You will never get profit to anyone. You want to save the world, but you don't have any profit possibilities. So it was super interesting back then, because for me, it was that fuck up that I understood, okay, so if I'm not a company, if I'm not a social business, what can we will be? And that was when it made me look for partners to co-found an NGO. And it made that everything happen. So this blocking on the door of the bar made me to find a good place to eat with the folks that ended up in being with me in this endeavor and having Comida da Manhã being putting forward. So I thank Amapico until today that it didn't selected Comida da Manhã, because it really made what we are today. But we had a lot of projects. We used to say that we have a drawer full of projects that we don't implement, because we still need to find an opportunity, to find budget, to have also today to find time and space and a team to embrace these projects. There are a lot of projects that ended up in the drawer, that ended up in the shelves. We don't have them implemented. But I think that they remind us all the time of never stopping innovating. So never giving up on creativity. So we know that today we are a big organization, mid-sized, but yeah, it's way bigger than we would expect in such short time. We are a big organization. We have a lot of compromise and commitment with all our team. We need to make this happen. We need to have everyone paying their bills in the end of the month. We know that. But at the same time, how can we keep the sweetness and the creativity to always look at what we are doing and what we are not doing yet, and thinking out of the box and trying to bring innovation and trying to bring ways to make things different. So I think that's something, some of our fuck ups, like our shelf, reminds us all the time that there are still many ideas to be implemented. There is still a lot to be done, and we cannot get comfortable in the place we are, but always be uncomfortable with the things that are still needed to be changed and that we still need to work on. So this uncomfort helps us to move on and not being quiet on the place where we are. So we are all the time trying to make it better and trying to make it in a way that we can achieve even better the mission that we have. So I think this would be two of the fuck ups that I would point out. There are many, but I think that they helped us.
I had a teacher that once told me that the best teacher is mistakes, because you learn little. You learn little from success. Success is nice, it's amazing, but mistakes are the ones that get you into that into the success moment. No, like, mistakes are the ones that build you over, that gives you character, that gives you some edge, I guess, to be able to move forward. And yeah, sometimes having the door being closed on something that we wanted is the moment of growth that we were looking for, that we needed, even if we at that moment didn't knew that.
Exactly. And this is something that you are mentioning about the mistakes and the things we don't do that good, that helps us to get better afterwards. We are super rigorous that every time that we have a Lupa workshop, any seminar, any debate, any event, we always collect feedback from all participants. And we really ask people to say the things they didn't like the most. So every time that each of the city, like the cities that are with us from Lupa for the last 4 years, the ones that got into the first edition, they keep on coming to our events, because we never do the same event twice. All the time is different, because all the time we have learnings and learning lessons from the last edition, and we want to improve it. So every time that we do any event in person, we have then a debriefing among the team to understand what can we do better. So we are all the time looking to the outside and looking to the inside and trying to understand what did we didn't do that well and we can improve next time. So we are all the time checking this up and understanding what were the mistakes so that we can evolve from that on. So this is something that is part of our DNA somehow.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you and the team of Comida de Mañana hasn't grown so much into yourself. It's like, no, we don't make any mistakes. Everything that we do is perfect.
No, not at all.
Because that's sort of like the moment when you're either too innocent and too naive to see that you're making a mistake, or just full of yourself. And the first one is a mistake. The first one is forgivable, but the second one is a quick and express way to the end. I'm very happy to hear that Comida de Mañana is very aware that, hey, we're humans, we fuck things up, but we can learn from that and we can always improve. Talking a little bit about the success, talking a little bit about the recognition that you have gotten, it's amazing. Congratulations. I always feel very happy when the institutions in the Global North decide to recognize the efforts that are being created in the Global South. It's not that often. Usually, a lot of the time, the guidance and the ideas and the new models that we need to follow come and are created from the Global North. And there is a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge, a lot of interactions, a lot of everything that comes from the Global South that gets ignored. So congratulations on that. I'm very happy that you and the team of Comida de Mañana have managed to reach that far. But obviously, the impact that you have on the people in Brazil, that's just, I would say, not necessarily a reward, but an achievement by itself. And we are reaching the end of the interview now. We only have 2 more sections. However, before we do that, I want to correct a mistake that I did and that I kind of forgot about, and I'm sorry about that. I would like to ask about your team. I would like to ask about the people that is around you. I don't know if you want to share something about them, not necessarily of the 41 people, but maybe from some of them you can choose. And if you feel that you want to share about the 41 people, we will somehow manage to put it in the interview. Don't worry about that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I think I pinpointed them all over my questions because they're all the time present. So, yeah, but it's just it's very beautiful. If you look in our LinkedIn pages and all of that, there is a picture of our last meeting last year together. It was super exciting. It was the first time that we got everyone in person because, as I mentioned to you, we are spread in the different 5 regions of Brazil, in the 18 states of Brazil. So it's very hard for us to meet with each other. But this is just to mention about the team. So we were organized. We are 4 directors. We are 3 co-founders. Yeah, I mentioned Juliana, Francine, and me. We are 4 directors. Thais is part of our leadership. I think it's just one point that is important. We decided, and this for social entrepreneurs, maybe it's something that is interesting. We decided to have a completely horizontal leadership. So among the 4 of us, there is no differences, and all the decisions are made collectively. So the strategic decisions are made collectively among the 4 of us, and each of us has different skills and different major strategic responsibilities in the institute, and that's something that is working pretty fine. And I think it's also beautiful to understand that we became friends after we launched the institute. So the institute is growing together with our friendship. So we have a lot of things that are happen based on trust. I sometimes I play with that, and I say that I would rent each of my kidneys to each of them because I know they will take care of them. I'm pretty sure of that. So we built our relationship and our professional relationship so much on trust that friendship came together. We weren't friends before that, and we became friends as we are building this house together, this marriage together. And we were only the 3 of us, the co-founders, for some time. And since the Lupo started and all these processes started in the pandemics, but mainly when we had this project when we became partners of the federal government to implement their strategy on food systems, on urban food systems, we doubled the team. And that's something that is interesting to share, just that in the space, in the room, like for 2 or 3 months, we came from an organization from 15 people to 30. And this was something mind-blowing, because out of a sudden you need to handle the project and with technical responsibility, but at the same time you need to organize the house inside and to have everyone comfortable and to build processes and to understand, to build all the human resources that we need and all the policies and the working policies and all of that. So we were learning that in the moment that this just we doubled size. Sometimes we say that we are still facing some growth pains, but we are trying to make it as good as possible, and we have a whole work dedicated to take care of everyone. So yeah, we have a beautiful team. We are focusing so much on diversity. I think this is something important also to say in the moment that we have in the world that day sectors are being just exploded. Diversity for us is mandatory. So we are trying to having people from different geographies in the country is super important. Having people from different ethnicity, race is super important for us. To have people with different ages is super important. So we have teenagers, people from 18 years old to T plus in our organization, and this is something that is super important. So I think this is also one of the keys of the work we are doing and the relationship we build, is that we have so much diversity and point of views to the project that we do, that we have people with different backgrounds, with different experience, with different territories in Brazil. It's such a country that is like a continent. So it's super important that we have people from the Amazon, people from the south, people from the northeast, from the central of the country, and they can work together. And this is something that for us is super valuable. So yeah, we are now 41. Some people are full-time, some people are just for specific projects, and people are punctually with us. But we've been building this beautiful group of amazing, talented people with us for the last years, and we really hope to keep the talents with us in the years to come.
I'm sure the opportunity is going to happen. It's always important, as you were saying during the interview, and you have been repeatedly saying during the interview, having a good team can make or break an idea, can make or break an initiative. So I'm super happy that you have a great team. They sound, all of them, they sound amazing. And I hope to hear good news about them and Comida de Mañana in the future, which brings us to the next section. What is the future for Comida de Mañana? You already have 60 cities collaborating with you in different levels. You have 41 people in the organization. It's easy to say, but it's super hard to achieve. What is next? What is coming in the next few months? Maybe at the end of the year, maybe for 2026?
Yes. At this point, we are now engaging in two big new projects, super exciting new projects that we are working, focusing on school meals. So we recently were part of the School Meals Coalition internationally, and we are now having two beautiful projects that we're super excited about that will be launched this year. So the first one just started, is called Penai Agroecological, the project that we are doing together with the Zero Hunger Institutes and with the Regenera Institutes, with support from the Rockefeller Foundation. And it's a program will be running in 4 different groups of cities. Actually, it's one city, and then there are 3 groups of cities in different regions of Brazil, trying to understand the gaps and the challenges for the school meals program in Brazil. We have one of the most recognized national school meals program in the world. The school meals program in Brazil, it's mandatory that the cities need to buy 30% of all the produce from smallholder farmers, family farmers. So the idea is to test how the school meals program can be a trigger to make the agroecological transition of these producers. The producers that are working on a conventional way of production, they can shift to agroecology because they have the possibility to sell and to provide this food for the school meals program. So this is something that we are just starting to do now, and we'll be running this with these cities as a way of testing the possibility and testing the gaps. And who knows, maybe to replicate this for all the cities in Brazil and really make a shift for regenerative agriculture and agroecology in the country through the school meals program and through this public purchasing program that is so important in the country. So this is something that is happening now, and together we are part of a coalition of organizations that is working also in school meals for schools in the Amazon region in Mato Grosso. It's called Amazônia Escolas. The project is called Terra Nutri. So this is a project also will be part. Is a very big group of organizations, and we'll also be working with these municipalities in the Amazon to be capable and able to help the transition and to help to bring biodiversity from the Amazon to the food in schools for children in the Amazon region, because it doesn't make any sense that children in the Amazon region have food that are being purchasing from the southeast of the country when they have such a valuable biodiversity happening in the region. They're trying to help that out in their program. So this is something we'll be pretty much focusing on that. We will also be part of COP30 in Brazil. So we're super excited in trying to leverage up this debate on food systems and climate as COP is coming to the Amazon region. So we have this big project called In the Table of COP, Na Mesa da COP, together with the Regenera Institute as part of the executive committee. We're trying to bring biodiversity food from the Amazon to the event of COP and to leave a legacy on the food chain for these producers to be able to provide this food to the markets in the region of Belém. So this is something that we're also involved in. But if you look to the long term or mid-term, we really are trying to understand how to update all the time the work we are doing with Lupa. How can we make it every time more interesting for more cities to get in? But at the same time, how can we turn this into a blueprint? And how can we go international with the learning lessons that we have? Because now we have lessons learned. Now we are in the 4th edition. We have a lot that we've been learning about cities and food policy at the local level. And we really want to understand how can we replicate this and bring this to the world, into other countries, mainly in the global south, in Latin America, but also in the rest of the global south. How can we help other cities, other municipalities, and other countries to leverage their food policies based on what we've learned so far, working so close with so many cities in Brazil?
Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing about the future. Sounds that you're going to have, you and team of Comida de Mañana are going to have a lot of things to do in the next few months. And I'm happy to hear that. It's always good to hear that the projects that we interview are always growing and always tackling new challenges. It's very, very nice to hear that that is happening. We are in the last section of the interview, and I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend to new social innovators that are starting? What would be your recommendation? Something that they need to look for, something that they shouldn't do, something that they should do? It's up to you. Is one, maybe two recommendation, however you want to make it happen.
Okay, try to make it a 2, maybe 3. If I'll try to make an exercise of looking to the first moments. As I understood, you're talking about social innovators maybe starting now. If they're starting now, think about how I was back then when I was still trying to understand what would be about Comida da Manhã. So I would say that, first of all, you need to recognize what is your flag about. What are you fighting for? Because once you recognize that, you need to find out who are your allies. So just be aware that you will never make it alone. Engage with people that are working with your topic. It's something about, like myself, I've never worked with food before. This was not a topic I was working with. So for me, it was really a challenge to understand how would I approach this huge topic. What would be the best decision to be done? So engage with people that are working with your topic, identify the gaps in the agenda, but with support from people. Dig into the literature, network with experts, go to events, go to congresses, trying to understand what is happening in the field. And while you are doing it, you will bring your allies to you. That's how I met Juliana. That's how I met Francine, that are today my co-founders. They were people that were very much engaged and interested in the topic. And they were also touching what to do on that. And we came to get together and to define that together. So I think that one of the topics is just be aware that you need to know what is needed, what is being done, who is doing what, who are the folks that can partner with you, who is targeting innovation, and get together with these folks, because there's no social innovation that isn't collective. If it isn't collective, it is not social innovation. It's the ego processes. So if you want to move on from your ego, recognize your flag, and from that, recognize your allies and get together with these people. There will be the folks that will move on with you for the best. So I think that's one of the key recommendations I would give. Together with that, I think that something that is important is the looking inside. So if you are starting any innovation, if you are an entrepreneur, if you want to do something, don't underestimate the role of your emotions. So it's important to understand that this is also always also about connection, about human connection, and also about life entanglements that you need to move on. So there may be many, many times when you find yourself that you're thinking that, is this what I should be doing? You will feel alone probably when the projects don't run, when Amapico closes, shuts the door for you, when you are facing with demands for you don't have skills for, because when you start being a social entrepreneur, you need to run a project and there are many things that you need to do that you didn't know how to do it before. So, or just because you're critical and you are a perfectionist and your mind is challenging you in your journey. So find your inner tools to be stronger. I had a lot of support from my therapist back then. So I was really trying to be stronger with myself. Otherwise, I didn't know if I had the courage to move on. So I really needed to know more about myself and what's deeply in you is making you take this step, because it's always also about you. So leave space also to dedicate to the people you love, to the things that you like to do, to be socially connected with friends and family, the loved ones, and everyone that you choose to be with. And just remember that the endeavor that you have in the organizations that you can be putting on, it's not your life, it's part of your life. So you really need to have supportive people that will remind you who you are in the moments that you get lost. And you probably will get lost at a certain point you will get lost. So have around you the people that know who you were before that, and it will remind you why you are doing what you are doing. I think that's super important. The therapy is super important for me, my friends, my deeper connections. And I was an immigrant. I was in another country. So I didn't have my friends from school there. When I started Comida Amanhã, the idea at least, I was for 5 years in Brazil. So I really need to find these connections, the people that could help me reminding and remembering what was being done. The first event when they was launched, the name Comida do Amanhã in October of 2016, I had a group of 12 or 14 volunteers with me, people that I knew and that I asked them, invited them to go to my house. I did a big dinner. I showed everyone what I was thinking of doing, and they were interested in being volunteers with me back then. I had no budget, no fee, nothing. But these people, when I look at these pictures until today, I have these pictures. I remember all the time I was never alone since the very beginning. If I would be alone, there would be no launching of Comida do Manhã ever in my life. So get surrounded by people from your relationships that you love that can help you out. And I think that one point that is super important also is prepare yourself financially, because if you want to do something, and I'm not, I don't have a very fluffy, mattress to lay on. So I needed really to work on that. So if you don't have all the budget for all your dreams in your life, really prepare yourself financially, because your project, most probably, they will take time to be financially sustainable. It's not something that happens fast. And when it launches, you will need to invest not only your time, your creativity, your energy, but also your money. So prepare yourself and plan that investment. When I started, I had to save money to survive. I had money to survive for the next 9 months. That was what I had in my bank account. So I could live for 9 months. I knew exactly what I would spend each month. If everything would go okay, I would have 9 months when I started Comida da Manhã. And I knew that if anything moved on in that period of time, I would need to look for a job and leave this idea behind. And I was completely conscious about it, and I would do it if necessary. And I had no pain about that. So I was very conscious, maybe this won't work, but I have money to try it for some months. And if it works, it's perfect. If it doesn't work, don't get hurt about that. Just to know that you tried, at least you tried something. So I decided that I have this plan for myself. So if anything happens in 6 months, I will start looking for a job, because I have more 3 months of breath until things start to go badly. And it happened that in these 6 months, it didn't happen that Comida do Amanhã gave me any money, but it happened that I was contracted for a consultancy international that took only my part-time job. So I could work with something else for half of my time and keep on having efforts and energy for Comida da Manhã. And this kind of happened for some years until the moment that we were able to have some projects that were being financially sustainable. So what I mean is thinking short, mid, and long time. So that's what I would say. What can you do now? What is your everyday routine? What you will be able to do in 6 months? So what is your feasible plans? But what also you want to achieve in the long time, your purpose that you need to understand when you know your flag. And if it would be like a quote, I would say engage with the topic, start small, do it wisely, and make it happen together. And in the process, take care of yourself and all your relations. Don't let them live apart.
Thanks for the advices. Yeah, I think they're very valuable. Follow your passions. If you're not passionate about something, you're not gonna survive it. So
Yep.
try to be as try. If you decide that you're gonna die in one hill, make sure that you are passionate about that hill. Otherwise, it's gonna be very, very short stand, so to say. Yeah, absolutely. You have to be ready economically. You have to be ready emotionally. You have to be ready in a bunch of different ways. But it is worth it.
And if you are not ready, be sure that some people will be there to support you. Ask for help if you need, because sometimes we would never be ready. I don't know if I'm ready until today. We struggle all life. So just be sure that you have someone to support and remember you and remind you and give you a hand when you need. And ask for help. We are living in a moment that people don't know how to ask for help. They know how to charge if people don't help you, but they don't know how to ask for help. So ask for help to the right people. I think they will be there to help you if they know that you are doing with your heart.
Yeah, I also think that we need to get better at asking for help, and most importantly, also get better at not ridiculizing when people ask for help, because sometimes
Exactly.
I feel that people don't ask for help because it's like, oh, how could I? Like, people are gonna think that I'm weak and stuff like that. And it's like it's not like that. We are human beings. We decided to live in a society. The whole point of having a society is to help each other survive. Otherwise, we would still be in the jungles, in the forest. Each of us having a small maybe unit of family members, and being awake at nights to be sure that the wolves and the lions and the bears don't eat us, or the jaguars in the case of the people that would be living in South America. That's basically all from the interview. Before we move for the social networks and the way people can reach out to you, you have an open space if you want to say anything that you think that we didn't maybe touch in the interview, or something that you want to go a little bit more deep. It's all for you.
I think it was a beautiful conversation. I'm super happy that I was able, and I thank you, Carlos, to invite me to be here. If there's something I would want to share with the audience is think about your food. Think about where it comes from. Ask, why are you eating what you are eating? Who is feeding what you are eating? When you buy it from someone, who is that person? Is the food you are buying is actually giving the capacity for someone to have their children in school, or is it giving to a big company somewhere in the world that you don't know where your money is going to? So if you have a small plot or a small space, produce something. Recognize that we are capable of feeding ourselves and share food with others. We should at first at least understand food as a common and not as a commodity. And if we can do it at least in our neighborhood, in our family, with our friends, share food, talk about food, look at food as something that needs to be thought about, as something that is political, as something that places you in the world, as something that can express the values and what you value the most in our societies. So is your food from that season? Are you eating seasonable food? Can you look at the package and see where it came from? Where is your garlic from? If you are in Latin America, are you having garlic from China? How many kilometers did your food take? How many sugar are you drinking? Where this soda is coming from? What is ultra processed foods? There is a lot of content and podcasts and documentaries. So engage with your food. It's something that will feed you for the rest of your life. It's probably the most intimate decision that has the strongest global impact. So 3 days, three times a day, usually you have the possibility to make it different, to make it happen differently. We are 8 billion people that make it different. So if you have the opportunity, if you have abundance, choose wisely. If you don't have abundance, collect politically and try to fight for the right of food. It's a human right. You have the right to eat adequately. So we need to bring up our flags and ask for healthy and sustainable food for us and for our children and for the societies to come. And we need to do it in a way that it doesn't compromise the planet we live in. Otherwise, there won't be food enough for the generations to come. So if I would share something with the audience, you that can hear me, talk about food and put people talking about food. It can be uncomfortable at the first time, but then it could be something that you can get passionate about and maybe, who knows, become a social entrepreneur on the topic or an activist. It's a very tempting theme to work with. So I would say that, and that is a way you could help us in our work as well. If you start to reflect and debate on that, who knows, we will shift policy from the public consciousness and awareness that we can bring with the civil society. And if you allow me, I can share some of our social networks and links. And yeah, so
Yes,
if you want
please.
to know more about our work, we are on LinkedIn. So you can find Comida do Amanhã, Comida. I think that maybe we can put it on the podcast, but it's COMIDAGO. And Amanhã, it's a very Portuguese word, is called AMANHA. So it means the food of tomorrow. We have our website in Portuguese and English. We will be soon updating our website, but you can take a look at it and keep updated on that. Follow us on our LinkedIn and our Instagram, and subscribe. If you are a Spanish or Portuguese speaking country, you can read our newsletter. It's for free every month, so you can subscribe once you get to our website. We also have a clipping of fresh news on food systems that can be sent to your email every week. It's called Café Quadro. So engage with our work. We are all the time around. We have our YouTube channel. So just be aware, check our contents. We have a lot also of articles and reports, both in Portuguese and English, in our website. You can check also the website of Lupa, LUPPA.comidadamanha.org. So stay tuned. There is a lot around there, and we will keep on bringing also content and news on the work we've been doing in all our social networks.
Amazing. Thank you very much for sharing all that information. As you were saying, it is a small act of resistance that you can do, choosing what food you consume. And maybe it doesn't look that much, but when a whole country starts doing it, something has to change. Thank you very much for being in the Voices of the South. Thank you very much for sharing the story, your story, and the story of Comida de Mañana. And that's all for the interview.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thanks for listening. That's the entire episode, and we hope to see you on the next edition of the Voices of the South. Many thanks to our patrons, as this work would be impossible without them.